The honourable member for Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, in the $400 million corruption scandal, which is the Green Slush Fund, you, Mr. Speaker, ruled that the Canadian people have the absolute right to demand the unredacted production of documents be given to the police. But this government refuses Parliament's absolute authority. Shame. Parliament is the people, and the absolute authority of Parliament is like your mom checking your room after you said you cleaned it. You know, you might be able to hide one or two things, and the government may be able to think they get off the hook, but Parliament is there to inspect and clean the House. Mr. Speaker, this is a messy House. When will this government clean it?
The honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Great job, Ryan.
Speaker, as I've said, the government has handed over thousands of pages of documents. However, the big issue here that I think Canadians are concerned about is that they know politicians shouldn't be directing police.
Exactly.
And what is at issue here is the fact that this House has decided that they are judge and jury and that the police should investigate something. We have no problem with police investigations. In fact, of course, any government would respond to them. And I would expect that any government of any stripe would react the same way we are today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, the police have already opened an investigation. This is just Parliament asking for documents to be turned over. It's the ask and the absolute rule of Parliament, and this government's refusing. Just think of it like a business, right? This government forgets that in a business, they're the employee. The Canadian public are the owners. In the real world, if a business refused to, or employees refuse to hand over documents or hand over anything in investigation, those employees will be fired. Mr. Speaker, is this government just waiting to be fired by the Canadian public, or will they hand over the documents?
The honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, in the real world, police have to request warrants. They have to go through due process to get information. It's not up to parliamentarians and politicians to direct police because they have a political vendetta. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect due process, and they expect that politicians are here to protect their rights, not to get rid of their rights.
Exactement.
The honourable member from South Shore, St. Margaret.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is so much Liberal corruption that Liberals are covering up their cover-up of the $400 million of corruption at the Liberal Green Slush Fund. The Speaker ruled that the NDP Liberals violated the House order to turn the Green Slush Fund documents over to the RCMP criminal investigation. Obstruction of justice is the Liberals' middle name. They refused to turn over documents in the SNC scandal, in the We Charity scandal, in the Winnipeg Lab scandal, and the foreign interference scandal. Just end the corruption cover-up and turn the documents over to the RCMP. How bad is it?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, every Canadian watching right now wants parliamentarians to do their job. The job of the opposition is to hold the government to account. The job of the opposition is not to direct the police. You don't need to take my word for it, Mr. Speaker. How about we hear from the Commissioner of the RCMP himself, who said that, quote, there is a significant risk that the motion could be interpreted as a circumvention of normal investigative processes and charter protections. He went on, in a free and democratic society, this ensures that the government cannot direct or influence the actions of law enforcement. We agree with the RCMP. It's time these guys start listening to the cops.
The honourable member from South Shore, St. Margaret's.
The Liberals blacked out so much in the documents that the Prime Minister's office ran out of toner for their copiers. So apparently it's okay to turn blacked out documents that hide Liberal corruption over to the RCMP. That's not a constitutional issue, but it is a constitutional issue to remove the redactions and expose the Liberal corruption. News for this minister, the Constitution does not exist to protect Liberals from criminal investigation. So will they just stop their cover-up addiction, and hand the unedited documents over to the RCMP?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
I have some grave concerns with what the member opposite said, beginning with the fact that I assume he's actually not seen those documents, so I'm not sure what he's talking about there, because the documents have been handed over. But what's of greater concern, and it was the RCMP who said it themselves, is that the way that the Conservatives are acting would actually compromise any police investigation because the evidence would not be considered. So what is of concern is that they're interfering in an investigation, they're interfering in police independence, and Canadians should be rightly concerned that Conservative politicians want to direct the police. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.